is ominous that we have the seamless fulfillment and delivery session running slightly later than planned. On on-time shipment, not really. But clearly, it is what I call the most real part of the experience. I'm sure you've gone through many stimulating discussions through the day today. But this is where the rubber hits the road. And the session is really about seamless fulfillment operations where, with changing consumer expectations, with changing competitive dynamics, there is really new business models emerging every day. However, the one real piece that remains is, how do you make sure that you deliver to the consumer in an efficient manner and you have a seamless experience for the consumer. So I think what we have today, is really an eminent set of panelists, and what I would do in your behalf is really, start off with a small question that I can put possibly to all of you. Given the landscape of our country, given the width and depth, I think all of you are putting out models with 20,000 pin codes, reaching out a very large number of consumers, everybody, trying to chase after this big market. So I think one of the first pieces that I'd like to understand is that for this entire seamless experience, how wide do you really think that companies should be going? And, should we be really looking at saying that this experience can be provided on a large scale and provided across the country? Or should you really start with being local and, just focus around a few markets? Maybe we can start with, Hitendra, you can, with really the marketplace and the large business guys.
Yeah, always pick up the guy who's differently dressed up, huh? I don't think so. There is a correct answer to this. I'm sitting over here. I don't know all the answers. I'll be very frank with you. But our business model started as an online-offline hybrid model. So we are into the returns management space. So in my answer to the question, the right way to do that is pilot and scale. So control a local area, get a customer who will allow you to create your product or provide a service in a local area, fine-tune that service, make it the best, and then copy paste in the rest of the country. I would say 90% of the business models would fall into this category. There could be some business models, 10% of them, that may require a pan-India presence. For example, in our case, when we went to an e-commerce company and said, we want to do returns management for you, and we said, let's do it in Bombay. They said, no, but I can't tell my Bombay customers that I'll give you a better return experience, while in Delhi, we will not give the experience. So either you do pan-India for us, or you don't do anything for us. So, but ideally, I would say that if we can do, it's a better way to manage your cash, and local, fine-tune your operation, and then scale.
Going through profitability. Abhinay, you are a much more local business model, if I might, in some form or shape as compared to the others.
Yeah, so as rightly pointed out by Hitendra, it's also the business you are in, right? For example, there is obviously a market which, in terms of consumer preferences, the market size, all those things are also very critical. So the space we are in, which is online grocery, wherein the key driver is from a consumer perspective, they are facing major time poverty. They find this whole exercise of buying groceries over and over again very time consuming and painful, right? Are kind of limited to larger, large size towns, metros and such cities. So from our perspective, we are saying the large chunk of the market really is in the top 10 cities. And then very small size market may exist in additional 15, 20 towns. So that's what we are kind of really looking at. And beyond that, we don't see that there is a huge scale of level for our kind of an offering. And that's the reason we don't have any ambition to go really pan-India as such. So it's a category product offering also which kind of defines how far you want to go, right?
Right. So what about Vishal? Let me, given every large e-commerce player is trying to compete on the number of pin codes.
So my thought on this is that, so it's a function of two things. A, at what life cycle of the business are you at? If you are a startup organization, it will probably, you'll test it out in a few cities and then build your processes, fix them, and then take it to the next level. And the second is obviously the function of the product type you have or the business type you have. For us as ShopClues, we are at a stage where my suppliers, they come from across the states, even islands, right? So I have now 120,000 sellers. For me, reach is critical. Reach in terms of where my buyer is. And that's when I seek help from India Post, I seek help from regional players. So it's purely a function of where you are on the life cycle of the business. So that's my one bit on this.
Interestingly, Mr. Pandey, since a lot of this is dependent on you in terms of whether the reach can really be made or not, do you see, how do you see this? Do you see from the perspective of India Post, do you see that it is really feasible to build a seamless fulfillment and a customer experience that is common across the length and breadth of this country? Is it really possible to deliver on the ground?
Well, my advantage is that perhaps with the experience which we have had in the last almost a year or so, one can touch upon various models which are emerging, and depends upon the kind of the product. Say, there could be something very time critical, as the case what we discussed just now, or what Gaurav has said when we are reaching out to tier 2, tier 3 cities. So we find a mix of this, but definitely as a service provider and a very traditional setup, I must confess here that we are bombarded with the challenges which we are going to face in the near future by the sheer magnitude on all fronts. So particularly the challenges would be in tier 2, tier 3 cities, where we say that we have the presence, but there itself, the volume which are coming, I mean, we have really need to tighten up to gear up to the meeting out the demands from various fronts. So it's a mix of both. It depends the kind of product we are looking at, whether we are going to confine it to the metros or say groceries and things like that, or we are extending it to particularly those segments, say where the amount, the average amount, the payment which has to be made varies from say 1,000 to 3,000 rupees. And another phenomena which is emerging is, as far as our country is concerned, this cash on delivery, which is what we say is the modern version of the old traditional value payable system. Right. And this thing is at present is growing very fast. In fact, there are again challenges on that front also. But just to share with this audience that a figure that was around something around 250, 300 crores in last November has touched more than 500 crores. That is what we have paid back to our partners. So that's things stand as of now, as far as from India Post perspective is concerned.
Right. Interesting. So you say there is a backbone in place that can potentially go with the right categories and build out. So, you could potentially provide a different perspective to this, right? I mean, as a B2B business, you're potentially more driving the efficiency for your clients than for yourself. And really, how do you see this fulfillment playing there?
So I have sat through many of the discussion in the audience here today. What I've really seen that so far we are looking at e-commerce more as B2C. So we have really created a very different e-commerce niche for ourselves, which is into print and merchandising for an internal marketing function for a company. So it is purely a B2B play. So for us, when we are really looking at the depth and breadth, so I'll give you examples. So we have companies which are focused only in, say, Maharashtra. And we also had a company, which is incidentally BJP, and during the whole National Lok Sabha elections, we ran a BJP campaign which was pan-India, and it was a direct mailing campaign. And by the way, we had worked with Department of Post to execute that entire thing. So we did cover almost the entire India for that. So yes, so we are looking at the width more from the client search point of view. But when we have got a client, we are finding how do we fulfill their need in whatever part of the country. In fact, we are also shipping to European market, we are shipping to Australian market, etc. At some point in time, maybe I'll just flip through a few slides to give them a brief introduction to the company. But let's continue with the call. Question.
Sure. Manish, what would you view this entire piece around? Do you think it's something that should get on with across the country, or?
So the traditional business wisdom says that you have to be there where there are buyers and sellers. So if there's buyer and seller in tier 2, tier 3, tier 4, whatever city I have to go, I have to be there. But then it is limited and restricted by internet penetration and serviceability and so issues. So what I see is that, yes, you should be present wherever the buyer and seller is there. But till the time we have got a proper infrastructure for it, then subsidiary models are going to evolve over a period of time, which are going to merge into the main business. I give you an example to this. Couple of days back I met a manufacturer from Karur. Now Karur, most of the people who are not aware, Karur is one of the manufacturing hubs for cotton and linen. Now all these manufacturers have got great product and they have been exporting for so many years, but none of the marketplaces pick up from Karur. So they want to get into e-commerce, but they don't have infrastructure around it. So there's a subsidiary model which has evolved. So there's a seller in Chennai who says that I'm going to sell on behalf of Karur sellers, and he picks up all the product from their warehouses in Chennai and then sell it across. So what I mean to say is that infrastructure is going to limit it, but as a business, we should always look out that wherever there is going to be buyer and seller, we have to be there.
Interesting. So on that bullish note, essentially what I hear guys say is that ideally we would like to sell everywhere. The backbone broadly existent. It depends on your product category and depends on your life cycle of where you are in the business to really scale up. So I think given that desire and given the really a span of what the country is and consumers everywhere being different, and the demand of the consumers really from the standpoint of choice, the standpoint of speed, the standpoint of control, visibility increasing every day. What is your take, and let me start with you, Minister, in terms of how do you see really a high velocity supply chain that gets to the customer really fast being built in the country? What is your take on how quick will a high velocity supply chain be and how will it get built? Will it be the nature of drones, or will it be simply better leveraging existing networks like the India Post, leveraging existing networks like FMCG and traditional networks in the country? Which way would it go?
So if I talk about India Post today, they service almost like 90,000 pin codes. And none of the other service provider logistic companies is able to service more than 10,000 pin codes. So if we talk about building a network as big as India Post, I think it will take years. So what is going to happen is that we're going to ride on India Post network and we're going to build. What can increase the velocity is definitely the infusion of technology and definitely last mile connectivity at the smaller places using India Post. So this is what I see.
Vishal?
Yeah, I think Manish is right. So reach is critical, right? And in our last discussion also, that's the biggest challenge I have. And I just wanted to add that point there. See, if I compare my business last year to this year, I have seen about 300% growth in the tier 3 to tier 2 towns. So goods shipping out of metros, tier 1 locations to tier 2, tier 3 towns has increased by 200 and 250%, which is a big number, right? So reach is going to be critical. Yes, India Post will play a critical role, but technology will have to be the only driver because the customer needs to be informed all the time. So, and the customer can be both the merchant and the seller and the buyer, right? So as a seller, I'm a customer as well as a buyer, right? So in a marketplace kind of a scenario. So technology will have to be the only enabler to do this. So that's my thought.
Interesting. Yeah. Then you want to take that? Yeah.
Yeah. Let me answer this. Let me actually give my perspective. If you look at e-commerce today, right? I agree with technology, but we don't know what specific technology is going to come in that will make it work. If you look at e-commerce today, 99% of the products that are sold are mobile phones, IT, accessories, fashion things, smaller items that can be shipped.
Yeah.
If you look at any of the large 3 big e-commerce companies, still you do not have them selling large amounts of refrigerators, washing machines, ACs, and so on and so forth, which is a large ticket item. We cracked that code in e-commerce. I think e-commerce has arrived. Today, you can use India Post, you can use Blue Dart, you can use Gati, overnight delivery, so on and so forth. At the end of the day, if velocity of supply chain is not there, and my definition of supply chain is not movements of products only forward. my definition of a holistic supply chain is not only forward but also returns, because that drives customer experience.
Right.
And so, one is that we need to figure out how quickly to get the product to the customer. In larger items, whether we need to build satellite warehouses in tier 2, tier 3, tier 4, tier 5 cities that can do fulfillment over there, technology to integrate, get visibility across the country. We don't have that today. I'm sorry, but most of the time what we are doing today, even us, it's a band-aid solution. And the customer, Indian customers are getting so demanding that everybody wants it tomorrow. And I'm telling you, in this market, companies that will win are not the ones with low prices, but the ones that will give a better customer experience. And do you see that do you believe that the price discount that you're seeing across the e-commerce companies will stay? Absolutely not. The discussions are already happening. How do you bring the price up? And then who wins? A company with a better customer experience. So I don't think so we have a solution here today.
Right.
All of them are trying, and Blue Dart or Gati or Aram Max or even India Post, somebody will cover a certain number of pin codes, somebody will not do it. So if somebody says that they have a solution to this problem, I'm sorry, I disagree.
So do you see companies really building out a logistics model, or leveraging, let's say, India Post? Is that high velocity enough, or do you see that somebody will have to build a model up from scratch and really build behind their own logistics chain?
Actually, what I believe, what is happening today is Indians' forward supply chain. Let's only talk about forward supply chain. Giving it to the customer is a highly disorganized market.
Right.
Today, every company, either they're trying to build themselves or they're trying to aggregate multiple courier companies. And there is not a single courier company or a delivery company that can cover the entire country today.
Yeah.
So the market, the model that is being built up, whether it's a Shopclues or a Green Dust or a Flipkart or an Amazon, first of all, they try to build their own transportation services. Why did they do that? Why would you do that? Because we didn't have a FedEx or a UPS at the scale of the US and India. But now they're working with 8, 5, 6, 7 companies together. This pin code mein aapko jana hai, aap chale jayega. And so it's becoming an aggregation model. Yep. That is what we are doing. It's a banded solution.
It's a banded solution. Fair. Mr. Pandey, your take on that.
In fact, all the 3 dimensions have been articulated very well. Let me, if to the best of my abilities, let me just kind of put them from India Post perspective. See, this entire scenario, we had talked about opportunities because of e-commerce. Yes, it has definitely provided a second, I would say, an opportunity for the department to rise up, and the same shift we had seen, say, about 15, 20 years back when we were written off in terms of personal mail. And that's how Speed Post was born. And it's also a fact that for the last 13, 14 years, we were the market leaders in terms of traffic at least. Having said that, the present challenge has got 3 dimensions. One is the collection part of it and the booking part of it, transmission, processing, and the nodal delivery at the other end. Yes, you have the reach, you have the advantage. The postman is known to most of the households, including rural areas, where now, if we just focus on the 20,000 odd locations where we have a full-fledged brick and mortar departmental post offices, all connected and networked, the delivery is going to be an issue in terms of handling those kind of weight and the frequency with which they are going and things like that. Coupled with this is the problem of the transmission, in the sense that with now products moving in a major way as compared to the document and mail and things like that, you have to have separate channel of communication. What kind of sensitization you have to do across the system? How many places you are going to cut down the handling so that the pilferage and other problems with which comes has to be tackled. So what I'm saying is that this entire gamut of activities has to be attacked in one go, and definitely the IT plays a major role in the sense that right now, even when we are interacting with our partners, we want to come and provide them the solution that at least the MIS is available to them. So that kind of integration is required almost on a day-to-day basis. So a large platform where it takes care of this kind of requirement, that's the product and the transmission is visible from both ends. And a simple analogy is that, in a retail shop, when we stand in a queue, the larger the queue and the larger the frustration. And we are conscious of this challenge. If we delay, if we are not meeting up to the expectations, we will be frustrating both the ends. So, that's how I look at it.
Understand. Abhinay, just would like you have the shortest life supply chain anyways for
so I mean, there is obviously a speed on one side. I think the way we need to also look at speed of value chain is, or the supply chain is, the cost of delivering the speed in the value chain, right? So any business which can really kind of build a supply chain which is fast enough and also keeps control in terms of your delivering cost is the one who's going to win, right? So if you ask a customer, yes, I want something in the next 30 minutes, right? But you say, okay, this is going to cost you $1,000. Is the guy willing to pay $1,000? And if you say, I will give you in 30 minutes and you don't pay me 1,000, I don't think you're going to survive very long to continue to provide that speed. So there's a trade-off in the speed of the supply chain vis-a-vis the cost of delivering on that speed, right? So businesses which will kind of be able to strike a balance, provide the consumer the right speed at the right cost so you still make money, are the ones who kind of really be around for long. Else, just speed is not something which will help you sail through.